All right, so we've covered using or solving quadratics, graphing. We're kind of going over this list again. Graphing, okay, square roots, we covered yesterday, factoring in chapter 9, and now we're using another method to solve quadratic equation called completing the square. Okay? Now the thing you're going to see is you're going to see some other things come back. You're going to see what we call a perfect square trinomial, the square of a binomial. Those kind of things are going to come back, and we'll see how much we remember from chapter 9, because I know it's been a little while. But I'm going to show you how to solve a quadratic equation using completing the square. Okay, so the first thing I want you to write down is, or I have written down, is this looks like, how many terms do you see up here? 3. So what would we call this? A trinomial, right? Okay, x squared plus bx plus c. Now you'll notice I have c in a box because there's something special about c. Okay, c we're going to find. We're going to find c. And how we find c, how we get this value right here, class, and that's why I put it in the box because it's special, is you take half of your b and you're going to square it. Okay? So whatever b is in this equation, you're going to take half of that value, half of b, and square it to find c. And what's going to happen, class, is once you do that, once you take half of b and square it, you're going to end up, this is going to end up being what we call a perfect square trinomial. And that we already know that the first term and the third terms are both perfect squares. Yep. And the last term has to be positive. So that's coming back again from our chapter 9 material that we've covered. Okay? So remember, you're going to end up with a perfect square trinomial. That perfect square trinomial then can be factored into a square of a binomial. Okay? And I'll show you how to do that too. But let's go ahead now and start with doing, we're going to start off by just coming up with what c is, and then rewriting this perfect square trinomial as a square of a binomial. That's only what we're doing. We're not doing any solving yet. Okay, so I'm going to put example 1 down, and we're going to work through this first and make sure this all makes sense, because it doesn't make any sense to move on to solving until we understand how to find c and then factor that perfect square trinomial. So what I do is I have an example here. X squared, I'm sorry, we're going to go ahead and let me write this down, is find the value of c. So find the value of c, and then semicolon. Then we're going to write the trinomial, the perfect square trinomial, as a square of a binomial. Let me make sure I have that right. Yep. Then write the expression as the square. We're going to do a couple of these. Of a binomial. Okay? All right, here we go. X squared plus bx plus c. So we're going to find c, class, and I like to put that in a box, just kind of really put a lot of emphasis on what c will be. Oh, I'm sorry. You don't want to be able to do that until you figure out what b is, huh? I'm sorry. I didn't put that down. All right, there we go. Much better. Now we can actually do it. Okay. So first of all, class, what's b? 8. Okay? So to find this value of c, to find this value right here, we're going to take half of b and we're going to square it. So let's do that. So x squared plus 8x plus. Let's figure out what is going to go here. Tell me this. What's half of 8? 4. Now square 4.
12.
So square 4.
16.
16. Okay. So I've just found c. Everybody see what I did? All I did was, again, take half of that number and square it. Half of 8 is 4. 4 squared is 16. That's what goes in there for c. We've now found what c was. Okay? Tell me now, is the first term a perfect square? Is the last term a perfect square? So is this a perfect square trinomial? Yes. Now that we've found what c was, we have one more thing we have to do in this problem. We have to write this expression, this is the expression right here, this perfect square trinomial, as the square of a binomial. Okay? So how you do that It's really actually pretty simple. The square, we understand that's a square, the square of a binomial, which means a two-term polynomial. All we need to do, guys, is look at the sign of the middle term. What's the sign of the middle term? Positive, right? Bring that down as your sign. Whatever the middle term is what the sign of the square of the binomial will be. Now, all we do is take the square root of each of these terms. What's the square root of x squared?
X.
X. What's the square root of 16?
4.
We're done. Okay? We're going to do one more yet. So don't worry, we're not going to just do one and... Yes, Terry?
Mr. Baker actually solved it all out.
Yeah, we're going to. We're going to. We're not going to do that right now, Terry. We're just going to get you kind of acclimated to how to do this part first and then solve.